How's it going, everyone? Grim here, and I want to do the first in a three-part unboxing mini-series on these old kits that I was able to get a hold of. Not old in the sense that they're no longer used in Warhammer 40K, but rather nowadays Games Workshop still makes them, still sells them, but the boxing is more modern. And as you can see from this one here, this one is a rather old design for the box. This old as in 2010 old, as you can see there, right? So this unit are the Grey Knights, specifically the Grey Knight Strike Squad, as it is known in modern times. You can see here in the box, it doesn't say Strike Squad. Back in 2010, they really didn't call them that, but nowadays you can get them as the Grey Knights Strike Squad, and that kit comes with 10 models, but this one from 2010 only came with 5, and I think that's interesting. What's interesting is that the Strike Squad in current 9th edition, you can have 5 models in it, up to 10 models. So I think it's really good that back in the day they used to sell these in boxes of 5 because the minimum size unit for this particular unit was 5. So you really, if you wanted just a unit of 5, you only needed one box, whereas nowadays you'd have to buy the more expensive, double the price box of 10 models, even if you only wanted 5. But of course, you don't only want 5, right? If you're building an army, chances are you're going to want way more than 5, because the Grey Knight Strike Squad is only one of 2 troops units in this particular faction. So OBSEC is given to troops for the Grey Knights. So if you want OBSEC, you're going to need to field these, and you're probably going to want to field a lot of them, way more than just 5. Right now, they are about 20 points per model. They have movement in 6, weapon skill of 3+, ballistic skill of 3+, strength 4, toughness 4, wounds 2, attacks 3, leadership 7, and an armor save of 3+. The sergeant in this unit, which is called a Justicar, has 4 attacks and leadership 8. All of these models come standard with a Storm Bolter and a Nemesis Force Sword, and of course the grenades that most Space Marines come with. I think that's particularly interesting because these are the normal version of Space Marine infantry for the Grey Knights, right? So like a regular intercessor for any of the other loyalist Space Marine factions, these Strike Squad models are supposed to kind of be the version of that. But they come with Storm Bolters. Storm Bolters are rapid fire 2, whereas an intercessor squad will only come with a bolter rifle, which is rapid fire 1. So normally you have these rapid fire 2 Storm Bolters on Terminators. You know, in the other Space Marine factions, they're usually on the Terminators. But with the Grey Knights Strike Squad, non-Terminators, have these Storm Bolters. And that's pretty interesting to me. They also have really good melee capability with these Nemesis Force Swords. You know, their strength is +1, so it's a 5 strength. AP -3 and damage 2. That's pretty good for a melee weapon, considering a unit of 5 is going to get, 16 attacks with their swords. Not only that, but the Grey Knights Strike Squad, Terminator Squad, and all the different variants, and there are a lot of different variants of those 2 main model kits, have these weapon options, great weapon options. So instead of a sword, if you don't want a sword, you can take a hammer. If you don't want a hammer, you can take it's called a falchion, which is kind of like a short sword, which has double the attacks. If you don't want a Storm Bolter, 1 model per unit of 5 can have what's called a psy cannon, which is kind of like an anti-tank, anti-armor weapon, or you could have a silencer Gatling gun, which is basically a heavy 6 type of bolter gun. So it's good weapon options. So if you're one of those builders like myself who like to magnetize. There's some good weapon options in this kit to magnetize. Now, I said earlier about how there's all these different variants or variant units for this particular Strike Squad kit and the Terminator kit, which we will look at in another video. But this one, not only the Strike Squad does this particular kit make, but you can also make 3 other types of units. You got the Interceptors, which is a fast attack. You got the Purifiers, which are an elite. And then you got the Purgation, which is a heavy. And all of those different units are very similar in terms of their stat lines, but have slight differences in terms of their abilities and capabilities. So obviously the Purgation one, which is a heavy, is geared more towards making those heavy ranged attacks. The Interceptors, which are fast attack, have the ability to kind of like move fast. They have a 12-inch move, and they can kind of move and then double move, kind of using their psychic abilities. So that's interesting that you buy this one kit, and nowadays, like I said, the modern kit has 10 models in it. You buy this one kit and you can make these 4 different types of units. So let's go ahead and open up this kit to see the plastic that makes these 4 different types of units. Alright, so as you can see, very old school instruction manual for assembly. I'm sure the modern one, which I have never opened before, has a more modern instruction manual. But you can see here now, right, these different options. The backpacks, this one with the rod sticking out of it, that's for the Interceptor, right? You can see here the different melee options. You want the Nemesis sword, or you want the Nemesis hammer. And then you can also have a short sword version called the Falchion, right? In terms of the ranged weapons, you can see here, you got Flamer. You got the Psy Cannon, which is kind of like the Heavy 6 Gatling version that most Space Marine infantry units have. And then you have this Psy Cannon, which is the anti-armor one. But then all of them come with this normal Stormbolter, which is pretty cool. A wrist mounted Stormbolter, because these guys need to have 2 hands to hold those hammers and great swords and that kind of stuff, right? Except for this dude. This dude likes to hold demon heads in his offhand instead. So I think that's kind of cool. Personally, by looking at this, I think the Stormbolters look a little too bulky on the wrist to be like a little wrist mounted ranged weapon type gun, but yeah. But it is what it is. I don't think Games Workshop is going to be remaking these anytime soon. But if they were to remake the Grey Knights, I would hope they decide to make the Stormbolters, the wrist-mounted Stormbolters, a little bit more proportional to the rest of the body. Alright, so here's the plastic. It's a 2-sprue kit. Now, this makes 5, right? So if you get the modern one that has 10 models, it's basically these 2 sprues doubled up. But you can see here, right? These are the Interceptor backpacks because they got these rods. This is that one Justicar Sergeant holding the demon's head. And then here's a Stormbolter connected to the arm. Here's a bunch of swords. Oh, halberds. That's right. Halberds are also another melee option. So you can magnetize the hell out of this, man. This is a wet dream for people who like to magnetize. Here's that Psy Cannon that has that anti-armor abilities. It's not really big and anti-armor. I think it's a strength 6, so it's not really anti-armor, but kind of. It's made for those bigger boys, right? But not truly against tanks. All right, that's this here is a silencer Gatling. Some magazines for all those wrist-mounted Stormbolters. Oh, this particular sword. stuck in a demon's head. That's pretty cool. Look at the second one. Okay, so these are the falchions that I was talking about, the short swords, where it has a lower damage because the swords, the great swords, and the halberds and the hammers, I believe, all have damage 2, or maybe damage 2 and then damage D3. These smaller swords have damage 1, but they make twice as many attacks, right? Here's the torso front of all of them, and you can kind of see all 5. There's 6 here because one's a Justicar option, but you know, these all kind of look slightly different, right? You look at them. They're not all exactly the same. So kind of showing that each particular Grey Knight has their own, I guess, custom personality and how they want their armor to look, right? And I like how, and this is a theme that flows throughout most of the Grey Knights faction. You know, their armor tends to have these words, these inspiring words that are kind of engraved into them. Yeah. So that's kind of cool. This one says duty with a tiny U. Oof. What does that say? Kind of hard to see what that says. These things are tiny. Some tiny words. Anyway, alright, so you see more, okay, the pauldron options, right? Different pauldron options, which is cool. A regular intercessor squad. All the pauldrons are basically the same. You can see these helmets. And you see these helmets here. They're very different. Well, not very different, but they're kind of different from the typical Space Marine helmet, right? These evoke more of a medieval knight helmet feel to them, with this bottom part that covers the mouth and the nose, right? And that's the kind of what they were going for, right? Because these are the Grey Knights. So here's the back. You can see here now. So if you want to make this particular kit be hot swappable to be a strike squad, an interceptor squad, a purifier squad, or a purgation squad, you know, you got these different weapon options, but you also have the different backpack options, right? So you have these normal backpacks, and then as we saw in the other sprue, you have these special interceptor backpacks. You're gonna have to magnetize these backs here, right? So I would cut that little ball off, put a magnet in there, and that magnet can then connect to that. But I wouldn't just put one. If you just put the one magnet to go onto that, then the backpack will spin around the magnet. So I would put 2. I would put a magnet there and then drill a bigger hole where that small hole is to make 2 magnets side by side. Put 2 magnets on this back. So this is kind of the right way the back is. So this is the top of the back, and then this is the waist of the back part. So I'd have to put 2 magnets there as well. It's gonna be tiny. They're gonna be like 2mm or 3mm magnets. And that way, with the 2 magnets holding the backpacks, then the backpacks obviously won't swivel. There's that nice hammer. Nemesis hammer. Some little bits there to go on top of the knights. Yeah, so this is pretty straightforward. Seems like a pretty straightforward build in terms of the sprue, but it has all these different weapon options, right? And I think that's pretty cool that you can make 4 different units out of this. I think that is awesome, and I think it's well worth the price that they're charging in comparison to other Space Marine infantry kits, just because this one has so many different weapon options, and you can basically buy the same kit and make 4 different units depending on how you build your army. Make them all hot swappable, so you don't have to buy all these different model kits for these different 4 units. You can just have this kit hot swap the backpacks and the weapons, and then you can field them as whatever unit you want: strike squad, intercessor squad, purifier squad, or purgation squad. Anyway, that's it for this unboxing. Thank you very much for joining me. If I made a mistake in anything I said, please leave me a comment. If you want to add to how awesome or maybe not so awesome this model kit is, based on your personal experience, leave a comment. Otherwise, I hope you all like and subscribe to my channel. Again, thank you for joining me. Until next time, Grim out.